Senator from Oregon.
President, first I want to commend my friend from Rhode Island for persistently and energetically prosecuting this cause, because having gotten to know Boey at home and visiting her in the hospital, I think all of us understand that it is hard to conceive of anything more tragic than seeing a young person's life claimed by cancer. And Senator Reid, as he has been educating the Senate on this issue and the importance of research and this cause, I think got to know Boey, and that's why I'm glad that he referred to her this evening as a warrior. And I would just tell my colleagues that if Boey Byers had been an elected official, she would have been the chair of the Warrior Caucus, because this very, very young child really did not know how to rest in the effort to try to get this legislation passed and to help other youngsters. When she was taken from us, she had battled cancer not once but twice. The first time, she'd beaten her cancer into remission. She lost her second battle, but she simply never rested. The day that I saw her last in the hospital, what we spent our time on was Boey and I walking down the halls with Boey trying to cheer up the other youngsters that were at the hospital. She put aside her own pain and the fear that cancer would claim her life, because she wanted to be, as Senator Reid has noted so eloquently, a warrior for all of the other children who've been suffering. So I'm really pleased to be out here with Senator Reid, and I think this is another example of the entire country coming together to try to stand up for these kids. And as Senator Reid has noted, when cancer strikes, it strikes a whole family. And that was certainly the case with Boey. Her loving parents, Rob and Rachel, her older brothers, Chris and Joe, all of us have continued to think about Boey and all that she did to brighten our lives, and particularly to stand up for other children. So for purposes of this evening, I simply wanted to ask my friend one question. I mean, this Senate can certainly have spirited debates about a lot of issues. Senators can have differences of opinion on a variety of questions, and we come from different parts of the land. The senator from Ireland represents a state 3,000 miles from mine, where Boey lived. But I'm still troubled why the Senate can't come together and pass this legislation. I think Senator Reid has made the case and made it well. He's clearly reached out to colleagues on both sides of the aisle. Surely there should be nothing partisan about legislation like this that will be so meaningful to children and their families. And for purposes of this evening, I wanted to get a sense from my colleague what else he felt we ought to be trying to do to pass your important legislation and get it on its way to the President.
Well, thank you, Senator. One of the things that we're doing this evening is once again highlighting the criticality of this legislation, the impact it makes in the lives of children and families across the country. And your voice is a strong voice for this, not only this legislation, but for so many issues affecting health care and children in this country. I think we are picking up speed, but we need the cooperation of virtually all of our colleagues, not to pass the bill, we have 51 votes, but to get it on the floor. That's not something unusual here in the Senate. But I think this is the type of legislation that shouldn't be caught up in the kind of the procedural rules which exist and we all use. I would hope that those that have reservations about this, I'm going to try to reach out and explain personally what is at stake, how we've tried to make changes, how we've pursued a bipartisan approach. And I just hope that we can be persuasive enough to get this legislation on the floor for a vote. And I don't think the opposition, frankly, is to the concept and the mechanisms that we're talking about. Certainly, it's not opposition to helping children and families that have cancer. I think it's caught up in other issues. We'd like to disentangle those issues, focus on what we can do for children that have cancer, and I see that. I think this was one of Boey's works. Warriors at the White House.
One of her many, and you can see her enthusiasm literally popping out of the drawing. She was an incredibly passionate, woman, and you've stated it well. I know of no members of the United States Senate who get up in the morning and say they want to be hostile to children who are suffering this way. I think a piece of legislation like this simply gets lost in the clutter of the Senate calendar and the business of the Senate. And all of us have staffers who handle health legislation and staffers who are serving as legislative directors. And I think for purposes of tonight, particularly given your eloquent remarks tonight, Senator Reid, I hope the phone will ring off the hook in your office tomorrow with senators and staffers, calling and making it clear they want to know more about this legislation, and hopefully be co-sponsors so we can get it passed.
I am encouraged also, Senator, but I think it's also incumbent upon the supporters like myself and yourself to begin to reach out. I mean, it's not all one way. We have to also reach out. That I think we both are committed to doing it personally to try to get through it. And my sense, I think, is a lot like yours. It's not an issue that people are object to. In fact, they're supportive of. It's caught up in bigger issues. And sometimes we just have to step back and understand that the big issues will still be there and the points can still be made, but we can get this bill done. I noticed the Warriors at the White House. Now, Boey is not going to, well, I take that back. My hope is one day the President of the White House is going to sign this bill, and where she says, okay, let's find the President, we'll find him at his desk signing this legislation, and she will be there, and Ben will be there in spirit, because they're the warriors and the young men and women that are helping us in our mission. So that's my hope, and I think we can do it, but we're going to try. We're really going to try. And if it's frankly, if it's because we haven't been as explicit or as communicative as we should with all of our colleagues, that's something we'll correct very, very quickly.
I will do everything I can to help. I think you've said it well. In a sense, your work acknowledges something that we all see every time we're home, and that is that health care has always been the biggest issue here at home. The senator from Rhode Island is somebody I admire in so many areas relating to international affairs with great expertise, and obviously there are many pressing concerns around the world. But the reality is, here at home, if our loved ones and our families don't have their health, it's pretty hard to do anything else. And I know in the case of Boey and her wonderful family, Rob and Rachel and her brothers, they were consumed by this. They all threw everything they had into trying to be there to comfort Boey, to get her the treatment that she needs. So we ought to do this for the kids. We ought to do this for the families. There are lots of other issues that we will be tackling both in health care and around the Senate schedule. This is something we ought to do now.
I agree, and I think it's something we can do, and the effort is to bring people together and to move from 51 to 61 to 71 to 100. I think we can. And we've begun we've begun in earnest months ago, and we're picking up the pace this evening. And I thank the Senator for his wise and kind words, and I would yield the floor.